Hello. In this series of video posts, we're looking at ways in which we can nurture our spiritual well-being at a time of crisis. And in this reflection, we're exploring ways in which we can nurture hope, and so to a spiritual exercise to keep us hopeful. I'd like you to think of three things that keep you hopeful, perhaps something that gives you hope, something that makes you joyful, something that makes you feel safe and secure. And then three things that make you despair, something that makes you sad or sorrowful, something that saps your joy, and something that makes you perhaps angry or annoyed. St. Ignatius, when he was laid up in bed with not much to do and just his thoughts for company, found what you will discover too if you try this exercise, that when we think of the hopeful things and the opposite at the same time, what saps or drains hope, we end up thinking more about the hopeful stuff. We move in a trajectory away from despair and towards hope. We move in a hope-filled direction. And this simple exercise lies at the heart of Ignatian spirituality. And it's an exercise that some people find helpful to do at some point each day, to take a little time to reflect on what makes you joyful, what makes you sad. It's a spiritual discipline that parents and carers can do with children at the end of each day, at the evening meal or before going to sleep. A quick review of the day. Where have you found joy, and what has made you sad today? And I've used this exercise profitably when bread making, to pour what makes us hopeful as well as what doesn't into the bread and to see what happens. The whole process of making bread from start to finish slows you down, which in itself is a good thing, but the time that we give attention to the bread also gives us the headspace that we need to process something spiritually. Or you may want to complement this spiritual exercise with physical exercise, and you can do this review on a journey, perhaps on a walk around Bramhope or around your garden, around different rooms in your house. And in this way you can introduce exercise and movement to the spiritual journey. So at the start of your journey, you may wish to choose objects that represent things that sap your hope and objects that give you joy. Perhaps during your journey, once you've processed these things for a bit, you might want to leave behind the things that drain hope, that desolate you, and to physically pick up the stuff that inspires hope and joy, the stuff that consoles you. And you'll hopefully find for yourself that once we turn our attention away from what causes us perhaps anxiety and helplessness, and look at the blessings, the hopeful things, we will find it very hard to put a lid on these. There have been so many positives to celebrate, despite all the losses in recent weeks. Here are three things for me, three things that give me hope. Our elder son John, who finds church services exhausting with his chronic fatigue, receiving communion for the first time in 2 years at Easter. Going out cycling regularly with our younger son Mark. Zoom meetings with the family, cherishing each person, catching up with their news. Closeness with family in front of my eyes. So why not give this exercise a go and see what happens? And don't think too hard about what gives you hope and what makes you sad. What springs to mind, and I trust that doing this spiritual exercise nurtures hope in you. I love the catchphrase of the Reverend Timms in Postman Pat, "Hope springs eternal, Mrs. Goggins." And this catchphrase isn't scriptural. It's a paraphrase of Alexander Pope in his poem Essay on Man. We're encouraged to hope humbly and to wait. What future bliss God gives us not to know, but gives that hope to be our blessing now. Sometimes it's helpful to memorize a Bible verse and to repeat it in our hearts. And as well as verses from Scripture that we can say, there are verses from hymns that we can sing. All my hope on God is founded. He doth still my trust renew. It's a reminder that ultimately we place our hope in God, the ground of our hope. And it's hard to quantify how helpful it is to sing or to say hopeful words. To conclude, a verse that we can surely never tire of repeating, from the last verse of Great is Thy Faithfulness. Strength for today. I sometimes replace that with bread for today. Strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine, with 10,000 besides.